Hi everyone, welcome back to A Little More Inspired. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit the follow and subscribe button so that you never miss any of my new episodes. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to go check out my website, alittle.moreinspired.com, so that you can explore all of my content. On today's episode, I will be recording part two of the Voice of Needs for the series that I've been creating, inspired by the book The Three Ordinary Voices of God by Matthew Kelly. Please go listen and explore the first two videos that I made on this series. And again, I am creating from a place of learning. I have yet to master these. I am also en route, so I am on this journey with you. So in this episode, I wanted to go into what aren't needs and any myth busters because I feel like we tend to confuse our needs for our wants. And I guess that's something that I recently found a lot of clarity into. I think we live in a society of wants. There's a whole industry now on manifestation, on getting your every desire. But as I've been growing and learning more, I kind of realized that that is a really limited way of thinking and also can cause a lot of heartbreak because we live in a society that is really focused on wants. You could take courses all trying to teach you how to get what you want, right? And I think that that sometimes can be misleading because I don't think life is always about getting what you want. And sometimes what we want isn't always what we need, as I've grown to learn and mature in my spiritual journey. Ideally, it would be wonderful to always get what we want, to get the job that we want, to get the relationship that we want, or to get, whatever material thing that we want. But that's not realistic for the rest of the world. Maybe for some people it is, but for us regular schmegular people, we do have to learn a little bit of how to be content and be happy with what we have. And because there's lots of people in the world who never get anything that they want, either because of like the environments that they live or, what's happening in their countries. And I just realized that kind of that idea of manifesting what you want is actually kind of selfish. I think for me, I've found that I don't really like the word. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have goals or you shouldn't have things that you are working towards. The manifestation culture trap is obsessing over wants, getting us into me, me, me mentality. Bitterness when things don't go our way, compromising values in pursuit of wants. The shift, recognizing needs, living with gratitude, and pursuing goals with peace instead of obsession. The truth, goals are good, but when they become obsessions, we miss the deeper work God is doing, shaping character, building trust, and guiding us towards what we truly need. Anchor is God places desires in our hearts, but his goal is always our growth and deeper connection with him. Happy, so I'll be going into the happiness paradox. Sometimes we'll finally get the relationship that we want or the job that we want or the income that we want, but we still feel empty inside. And why is that? I really wanted to make this one because I thought that, this would just be a good addition for any clarity. So, just to recap a little bit about what we learned in the last episode, we learned that to be human is to have needs. They are not flaws or weaknesses, but a part of God's intentional design. Needs act almost like a divine GPS, pointing you towards what will allow you to thrive physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. Ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. It puts you in survival mode instead of abundant living. And think of needs like a dashboard of warning lights. So you have to keep all of the oils and changing and, the mechanics of your inner self and your inner world so that you are living a life that is healthy, that is balanced and aligned with what spirit wants for your life. A quick rundown of what physical needs are. Those are food, water, rest, exercise, and health. Emotional needs is love, belonging, and security. Our intellectual needs are mental stimulation, growth, learning, and lastly, our spiritual needs, which is a connection to God, purpose, and moral clarity. If one is ignored, the others will eventually suffer. Okay, so I just wanted to give a quick definition on what is a want versus a need. The definition of a want is something you desire but is not essential for survival, growth, or flourishing. Wants are optional. They add comfort, pleasure, or convenience, but they aren't necessary to sustain life or to fulfill your deeper purpose. Needs are life's non-negotiables. Without them, our bodies break down, our hearts grow empty, our minds become dull, and our spirits drift. Wants can be good, but when they take the driver's seat, they can distract, enslave, or lead us in the wrong direction. Listening to needs builds wisdom and freedom. Chasing wants without discernment often breeds dissatisfaction. So today I wanted to go into myth busting. These are helpful to clear confusion on what are not needs. So number one would be constant entertainment. We might think that that is fun and that we constantly need to be entertained and to be distracted. But survival and thriving require rest and healthy stimulation. I think it can be really hard because like our society doesn't really teach us to be necessarily disciplined, being constantly entertained, constantly looking for doses of pleasure. The things that we actually need do require effort from us and do require us to be a little bit more disciplined. When we rely on constant entertainment, endless scrolling, binge watching, or filling silence with noise, we numb ourselves instead of renewing ourselves. True renewal comes from balance, rest for the body, learning for the mind, connection for the heart, and silence for the soul. Entertainment can be good in moderation, but it was never designed to replace these deeper needs. Number two is approval from others. That is not a need. Affirmation feels good, but it is not essential. Healthy belonging starts with self-acceptance, rooted in God's truth. Depending on approval, hands your peace to other people's opinions. Praise lifts you up, but criticism crushes you. Build your identity on truth, not applause. True belonging doesn't come from applause, it comes from knowing you are already fully loved and accepted by God. Confidence flows from aligning with God's design, not from trying to meet everyone's expectations. Always seeking other people's approval can be just a very exhausting existence because you're never going to make everyone happy. True confidence comes from knowing that you like who you are and that you know that you are valuable because you are a human being. And that's all that needs to be said about that. You don't need other people to agree with you. You just have to have that deep inner knowing that you matter. I think it took me a really long time to understand that other people's approval isn't actually something that I need, or being liked by everybody isn't something that I need to survive. I think that the wound of rejection can really put us in a survival mode to want to feel like we belong. And as I grow more spiritually and I develop my character and my personality, I become more secure in who I am and I like who I am more. And I stopped really looking for other people to validate that I matter. But I do think that that is a spiritual journey of finding that sense of true acceptance, because you just have to realize that people are really fickle. Sometimes people love you and then the next day they hate you. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you, honestly. I used to take it really personal when people didn't like me, and now I realize that I can't control other people's narratives about how they see me. All I can do is do my best to be kind and to treat other people with respect, but how people receive me is entirely up to them. And sometimes people look at you and they immediately are like, they don't like you, and you can't change their mind. I think that a lot of the times we waste a lot of time trying to convince people that we're a good person or that we're valuable. I think that over time, as you mature, you realize that, like, it doesn't really matter. Number three would be luxury and convenience. Enjoyable, but not life sustaining. True provision is basic needs met with gratitude. Luxury and convenience can make life easier, but they can also create a false sense of security. Gratitude reminds us clean water, food, shelter, and connection are already abundance. Chasing convenience can weaken resilience. remember that patience and endurance grow us more. God designs for provision is simple and sufficient. Everything else is a blessing, not survival. Everything else, other than from living comfortably, is something that we should live in gratitude for, not something that we should constantly be striving for and pedestalizing as if that makes us valuable. I work in luxury and I see just how weird people can get around it. And I've also seen how people change with you or how they act differently when they realize that you have money or maybe you have connections. I just find it to be very weird behavior. And those things are nice, but they don't create somebody's value. Also, I think if you want to get all spiritual and like religious about it, I think there's a reason why God made Mary and Joseph Jesus' parents and why he came from a really humble family. Sometimes you pedestalize people for what they look like, what they have, or what they could provide you, but most of the time, the people who truly come as a blessing are sometimes the people that you least expect any goodness from them because they don't fit the bill that you think will make them valuable. It's nice to learn from people who are successful. Obviously, you want to learn from people who have learned the world and know how to, I guess, find monetary success. But even then, you have to be wary of those people because sometimes mastering a capitalistic society, did it come with virtue or did it come off of the backs of, betrayal or innocent people? So just remember that sometimes I see it now, we pedestalize people who are wealthy and we somehow think that they're holier than thou. Like I said, the people who sometimes come as a blessing are the people you least expect to come with internal abundance, and you turn away from them. So you reject God's blessing sometimes because you're superficial. So, anyways, just remember that judge people by the internalness of their character, not because they have a nice handbag or because they drive a nice car. Sometimes those are the people that are the most empty inside. And am I saying that you shouldn't strive for nice things? No, nice things are great. It's all about a balance, never putting your value in those things. I think that this one takes a little bit of time because I have been maybe in two sides of world where I've had not a lot of things and then I've seen how other people live. I do think that it can be addicting to want luxury and to think that you need certain things to be happy with yourself. As you grow over time, you realize that a lot of the things that people are searching for, especially in material things, it's all kind of an illusion. And I don't really know how to explain this in a way that you might even understand yet. Over time, I realized that it is nice to have nice things, but those things doesn't equate my value. I've met a lot of people who will do anything for a luxury bag or a really nice car or to be seen with all of these luxury items, and they think that that makes them valuable. But that stuff doesn't make you valuable. I think that your character is what actually makes you valuable. What actually makes you interesting is a true personality. I think that the world can sell us a lot of false truths. Finding gratitude in the things that you have and having a roof over your head, especially now, there's a lot of people out in the world that are truly suffering, and they don't have anything. And so I want to be more mindful of what it is that I value and realizing that I already feel very wealthy, even if I don't have a lot. And it doesn't come from those material things. I think it comes from the love of my family or, feeling fulfilled in my creative things or getting closer to God spiritually. I've totally have shifted my mind on what I find to be a luxury now, or even just having time to read. There's so many things that change as you realize that those things aren't always going to makes you happy. Another myth buster is avoidance of discomfort. Real growth often happens in discomfort. boundaries and recovery are needed, but permanent avoidance keeps us stuck because we live in a society that is constantly seeking to distract us and to makes you believe that you're looking for this end result that's going to be your ultimate happiness. We can sometimes avoid discomfort in growth. And I really believe that if like you really are looking to genuinely grow, you have to realize that that's going to come with a lot of discomfort because change requires you to grow and growth requires you to be uncomfortable.
Avoidance of discomfort. Comfort feels safe, but growth often requires challenge. When we avoid discomfort at all costs, we avoid the very experience that stretch our faith, resilience, and character. Pain, setbacks, or difficulty aren't always enemies. They can be teachers that refine us. Boundaries and rest are healthy, but permanent avoidance leads to stagnation and missed opportunity for transformation. God often uses discomfort to prepare us for deeper purpose.
Becoming okay with the discomfort and not necessarily receiving it as a negative thing will be helpful for you to evolve into the person that you want to become or who God's called you to be. Another one is constant busyness. Activity isn't always purpose. Rest and reflection are equally essential. I think that sometimes I feel like people will carry their busyness as this like badge of honor, like they're so popular, they have all these things that they have to go to, and they neglect those true needs that we've talked about. And then they realize they've been prioritizing a lot of things that don't really matter. So that just really is taking inventory of your life and being honest with yourself.
Constant busyness, activity isn't always the same as purpose. We can fill every moment with work, task, or distraction and still feel empty. Busyness numbs us just as much as entertainment can. It keeps us from reflecting, listening, and resting. Rest and stillness aren't wasted time. They're spaces where wisdom, creativity, and spiritual renewal can happen. God calls us not to be frantic striving, but to fruitful living.
Yeah, I think that all of these are things that you have to reflect on your own and see how they relate to your life. And then another one is romantic relationships at all times. Love is a need, but romance is not the only way to get it. Friendship, family, and God's love can fill this too.
Love is essential, but romance isn't the only form of it. Culture tells us we're incomplete without constant romantic attachment, but that's not true. Friendship, family, community, and God's love can deeply fulfill the need for belonging. Placing romance on a pedestal can distort our values and cause us to settle for less than what is healthy. Real love in any form starts with God's love anchoring us. I think that people don't really understand how sacred and how much growth can come out of romantic relationships. I think that we're constantly searching for someone to save us in relationships, and I think a lot of people suffer unnecessarily because they're looking for somebody to complete them rather than working on completing themselves and being whole on their own and knowing who they are while they wait for the right partner. I think that there's a lot of time wasted on people that come in and out of your life who you have these like 1 year, 2 year experiences, but it just was a cause of a lot of heartache or even sometimes trauma. I think being more patient with the right relationships coming into your life with people that you can genuinely grow with and learn with in a way that is healthy rather than always turbulent can happen if people are a little bit more patient. And then also, we tend to neglect all of our other relationships when we are consumed by these short lived romances. We ignore our friends, we ignore our family members, we become totally dependent on people we barely know. So yeah, I think that realizing that love is coming in so many directions, and we're sometimes so stuck on, well, I don't have a relationship, no one loves me, when there's like lots of people who are trying to love you. People will neglect the love that is right in front of them. People who are trying to show them kindness, but they can't see it because they're so stuck on finding love in this idea that they have in their mind.
I think that this one is a great one to reflect on, because we are sold this idea that we're all seeking this fairy tale romance, that we have to find the one and we're going to be ultimately happy when we find our other half. And I think that as I've grown more and I have gone on this journey of self growth, I realize that that isn't necessarily something that I really need. I do want it, but it's not something that I have to necessarily obsess over. I think that for me, I've put that desire in God's hands, and I don't want to suffer unnecessarily either. I realize that that love and that intimacy that I've looked for at times in other people and relationships is something that I needed to get straight within myself. But there's other loves that come into my life as well. My sister and my mom and my best friend. I'm not being loved just because it's not coming in this romantic kind of way. And I think that that can be really confusing, in our society. Like there's shows like The Bachelor and all these different dating shows that sell women this idea of like this grand love. And you do want to have like a good romantic relationship. I really like the story of Mary and Joseph, and their love really was a purposeful love. They were together as a couple, but they were on a journey towards like a bigger mission, and learning about how they came together and how they didn't go like searching, and God already had a plan for them, and they were both obedient in the journey that they both needed to take in, and they trusted God's instruction. Every time I learn about them, it makes me realize that that isn't something that I have to be desperate for. Like, I think that sometimes a lot of people suffer unnecessarily because they're always jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship without any real growth, that they're just like searching for that honeymoon high. And then when things get hard, they just move on to the next thing. Or they totally neglect everything else. They're totally codependent on someone and neglect all the other things that they could be doing. You want to align with somebody who is supportive of your journey and you're supportive of his journey. I've met a lot of girls who feel like really insecure about never having a relationship, or if like they don't get a lot of attention from men. And I don't really think that you should look at it that way, because I think that when God has kept me in times of isolation where I haven't really been around a lot of people, I've always found it to be like kind of a protection of factors of growth where I'm really being introspective. I'm not saying that it's always easy. I think that that's like a spiritual journey in itself of letting that desire go. What I'm saying is that don't be hard on yourself just because you're not in a relationship or you don't date as much as everyone else. And then lastly, what's not a need is control over everything. Safety doesn't come from total control, it comes from trust and resilience. I think this is a great example of what is not a need, because a lot of people feel really unsafe in their lives, and to find a sense of safety, they feel like they have to control everything. They have to control their emotions. They have to control everyone around them. They can't feel anything that's uncomfortable. They have to have their head in everything. And so they start to lose that genuine freedom.
Control over everything. True safety isn't in control, but in trust. The illusion of control can make us feel secure, but life often proves otherwise. Trying to micromanage every outcome leads to anxiety, fear, and exhaustion. Resilience, adaptability, and trust in God's providence creates lasting peace that control never can. Control is limited, trust opens us to freedom. So, yeah, when you are trying to control everything, everyone around you, that is when you are least in control. It can be a process of finding trust within ourselves, even especially if we've been hurt, tricked, or just gone through significant trauma. But that is a security that you start to build as you continue to work on yourself. The goal is not to lead a life where you never get hurt or you never go through suffering. The goal is to gain discernment where you are not being led by your wounds and by your illusions, so that you can see life with eyes of clarity, and then that can help you navigate life, to be able to walk away from people that are not well intentioned for our life. I think that when we're trying to control everything, we think that we can create the secret sauce that will keep us from ever having bad experiences. It's not that you won't have bad experiences, but that you know that you can trust yourself, that you can handle yourself in any experience that life throws at you.
They start to lose that genuine freedom because they're just hyper vigilant all the time of either getting hurt or of things not going the way that they want. And that is also a process of surrendering. But when you control everything, that's actually when you're least in control. Those are myth busters of what are not needs, and take inventory of how those relate to your life. I shared how they related to mine, but you can relate differently to them. And so, lastly, I will be going into the happiness paradox. And what is the happiness paradox? It is, we often think if I get X, then I'll be happy. Sometimes we get exactly what we wanted, the job, the relationship, the house, the recognition, and yet the happiness is short lived. Why? Because we confused a want with a need. So, why getting what we want often fails to satisfy us? Number one is wants are temporary, while needs are enduring. Wants satisfy for a moment but fade quickly. For example, when you see a pair of shoes that everybody's wearing, the trends that everybody has, and you're the only one that doesn't have it, and you're like, oh my God, I really want those pairs of shoes because once I have them, then I'm going to be happy. But then once you get the shoe, then you've moved on to the next thing, the next trend. Wants are temporary, they go just as fast as they came. And needs are enduring, they're here to last, they're here to really create a foundation of, I wouldn't even say happiness, I would say a foundation of alignment and just being ultimately healthy and content. Number two is wants often come from comparison. We see someone else with it and assume it will work for us. What works for them may not align with our calling or purpose. So I really like this one because I think that a lot of the times we tend to be a little bit of copycats because we live in a society that is constantly telling us what we want and what we should want or what we should look like. And so we look at our friend and they have this kind of life and this kind of wardrobe, and we see how they get attention, and we're like, well, I need to get attention that exact same way what they have because we want the same results as them. But really, our lives are uniquely made, so what works for somebody else isn't necessarily what will work for you or what you actually need. The goal is to become focused on what it is that you need for your life, not what works for your friend or what kind of life that they have or what you don't have compared to them. That can be a really slippery slope to envy that can create a lot of bitterness within us if we are constantly comparing our lives in the hierarchy that this world tries to put us in. Kind of snapping yourself out of that is so important to live a happy life. I think that we've all struggled with comparison, but I think that I do try my very best to correct those feelings. I think that just remembering that comparison is the killer of joy. Everybody comes with baggage and things that they're not showing you. And those lives that you see on Instagram, on the TV, or those kinds of things aren't necessarily real. And yeah, I think that that's like a personal thing that to mature that. Number three is wants can distract from true needs. Chasing a want can cause neglect of a deeper need. Example, wanting career advancement so badly that you neglect rest, relationships, or spiritual life. Number four is wants are tied to mood, needs are tied to purpose. Wants change with circumstances and emotions, and needs remain constant. We're looking almost for a high or for this heightened sense of pleasure. And if things don't come with that feeling, then we think like, well, that's not really something that I really need because I don't feel elated when I'm doing that. Number five is culture markets wants as needs. So advertising fuels the if only cycle. If only I had this kind of thing. So here are Kelly's insights on the happiness paradox is that true happiness comes from consistently honoring your needs in all four areas: physical, our intellectual, our emotional, and our spiritual needs. Getting what you want might make you feel happy for a while, but meeting your true needs makes you to be happy in a lasting way. So here are just some reflection prompts that I think would be beneficial for you to think of and to reflect on. Can you think of a time when you got something you really wanted, but the happiness didn't last? I can think of some times when I've gotten what I wanted and I realized, why was I so desperate for that experience, and it turned out to be something really disappointing? Was there a deeper need that wasn't met by that want? What's one want in your life right now that might actually be distracting you from a real need? Lastly, what is God's desire for you? God wants you to thrive. He doesn't want you to survive. He doesn't want you to be in a hamster wheel searching for never-ending distractions, never-ending pleasures that never truly satisfy you. He wants you to be at peace and content, living a life that truly you feel at the end was worth living. And that is through taking care of your vessel, your body, the things that you need to keep this vessel healthy while it's on earth. Emotionally taking care of yourself, finding individuals who genuinely love you, who care about you, and feeling your feelings and acknowledging them without being afraid of them or being overwhelmed by them. Intellectually learning so that you are growing your mind, expanding your vision, getting clarity on truth, and not getting manipulated by lies because you don't know anything. And then lastly, spiritually growing. Spiritual growth is the most subtle of all the needs. It's not going to scream at you, but once you realize that that is a cup that fills all the other cups with so much strength and energy, you are going to see just how much more happier you are. I feel like when I prioritize my spiritual life, when I do my meditation, when I do my prayers, when I read my spiritual books, when I fill myself with personal time with God, I feel like my whole life just flows so much better. Meeting your needs equips you to serve with power, clarity, and joy. When you neglect, you feel burnout, but when you care for your needs, there's endurance and fruitfulness. Meet your needs first so you can meet others without collapsing. Serving without joy is serving without light. God wants your service to shine. He wants you to be bright. You have a deep light within you. And don't let other people dim that. Don't dim it yourself by neglecting the things that truly matter. Finally, ask regularly, what is God saying to me through my needs right now? Then act on it with purpose and courage. In your prayers, in your journaling, ask God, ask Spirit, what do you want for my life? Not my parents' life, not my friend's life, not society's idea of what my life should be. What do you want for my life? And then have courage to walk the path that He wants for you. And I hope that you find clarity in what it is that you're looking for. I hope that these videos you find inspiring for you to go read the book, The Three Ordinary Voices of God, and for you to go on your own healing journey. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to hit the like or share button or send this to your friend, your whatever, if you liked the messages of today. This is the final episode for the Voice of Needs, and in my next episode for the series, I will be going into our talents. I'm very excited for that episode. I think that Matthew Kelly broke that one down just so well. Yeah, I'm very excited to get into those lessons. So thank you so much everyone for watching. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye guys.